Quick check. When you're trying to come up with a new username, do you find yourself scrolling through options, and the ones that start with your initial just feel a little bit better? Or you're standing in a store aisle, staring at two nearly identical products, and for some reason, the brand that shares your first letter seems a tiny bit more trustworthy. You can't explain why, but there's a pull. Today, we're going to unpack that quiet, invisible force and find out why your own initials might be the most persuasive marketers you'll never see. Think about all the little naming moments that fill our lives. Choosing a gamer tag, naming a Wi-Fi network, coming up with a title for that new playlist. You're trying to be clever, original, to capture a specific mood. And yet, somehow, your own first letter keeps sneaking back onto the shortlist. It's like a quiet little magnet, a familiar friend in a sea of choices that you don't even notice until you step back and see the pattern across all the names you've chosen over the years. There's a name for this gentle tug. Psychologists call it the name letter effect. In simple terms, your brain automatically gives a small, unconscious bonus point to any letter that's part of your own name. This is a little piece of a much bigger idea called implicit egotism, the basic, deeply human tendency to gravitate toward people, places, and things that feel like us. It's that subtle sense of comfort and rightness we feel from things that reflect our own identity back at us. So why would our brains even do that? It starts with the simple fact that you are the main character in your own life. Think of your sense of self not just as a pin in your memory, but as the sun in your personal solar system. Everything close to it gets a little more of its light and warmth. Your name, and by extension its letters, are orbiting very, very close. They are some of the first and most powerful symbols for me. So they automatically catch that glow, standing out from the background noise of the alphabet. There's another reason. Cognitive fluency. Your brain is a bit lazy, in a good way. It loves shortcuts to save energy. Processing something familiar, like the letters you've seen and written thousands of times in your own name, is like walking a well-worn path in a forest. It's smooth, it's fast, it requires almost no effort. Your brain mistakes that ease of processing, that fluency, for a feeling of rightness or even goodness. An unfamiliar letter is like wading through tangled undergrowth. It's more work, and that little bit of cognitive friction can make it feel less appealing. This isn't just a theory. It started with a very simple observation in the lab. Back in the 1980s, a Belgian psychologist named Joseph Nuttin did a curious test. He asked people to just rate how much they liked each letter of the alphabet. It sounds strange, right? Why would you like the letter Q more or less than the letter T? But when Nuttin collected the results from person after person, the pattern was unmistakable. People consistently gave a little bump in their ratings to the letters that spelled out their own identity. And this isn't just a quirk of the English language. In 1997, researchers Shinobu Kitayama and Hisaya Karasawa found the same pull in Japan, using Japanese kana characters. They also discovered a birthday number effect. People showed a small but reliable preference for the numbers that appeared in their own birth date, the day and the month. It seems our brain's affection for me symbols is a fundamental human thing, not tied to any one culture or writing system. Okay, so we like our letters a little more. Does it really change what we do? Sometimes, but only under very specific conditions. In 2005, a team of researchers ran brand choice tests. They found that when a person's sense of self was activated, maybe by seeing their own name on screen, they were slightly more likely to choose a product whose brand name started with their initial. But here's the key. This only happened when the products were basically identical. That is the perfect stage for this effect. The land of near ties. When two options are basically equal in price, quality, and features, your brain needs a tiebreaker. The name letter effect is that tiny, gentle breeze that can tip a coin that's perfectly balanced on its edge. It is not the hammer that can smash the coin and force a decision. So it won't make you love a bad product, but it might just be the deciding factor between two good ones. Here's how that looks on a random Tuesday. Carlos is at the pharmacy, trying to pick a cold medicine. 2 boxes look the same and cost the same. One is called Cold Away. The other is Relief RX. He can't name a single big reason, but he finds himself reaching for the C box. He doesn't always buy the C brand. If Relief RX is on sale, he'll grab it. But when everything else is equal, the C gets that tiny, invisible edge. Now, you may have heard some much splashier claims. Stories about how people named Dennis are more likely to become dentists, or how people named Georgia are more likely to move to the state of Georgia. It's a fantastic story, and it made for great headlines. But as we often find in psychology, real-life data is a lot messier than it looks. In 2011, researcher Simonsohn took a closer look at these claims. He realized you have to account for other, hidden factors. For example, the name Dennis was incredibly popular for baby boys born in the 1950s. And what did a lot of those boys from that generation grow up to do? They became dentists. The link wasn't the letter D calling them to dentistry. The link was that a popular name from one generation was showing up in a popular career for that same generation. It wasn't magic, it was just math. Here's the honest takeaway. The quiet, gentle lab quirk is absolutely real. You can measure it again and again in rating tasks and carefully controlled choices. But the giant, life-altering headlines were largely oversold. They took a tiny subconscious tilt and made it sound like a powerful script that writes our destiny. The truth is, it's just a whisper, not a command. Think about how you customize your online world. When your profile picture won't load, what's the default image? Often, it's a colored circle with your first initial right in the middle. Social media companies know this. That letter is the simplest, most recognizable stand-in for you. It becomes a tiny visual anchor for your identity online. We get so used to seeing it that the pull towards our own letter gets reinforced every single time we log on. This whisper can even show up at work. Imagine a team brainstorming a name for a new project. The list on the whiteboard says Atlas, Beacon, Praxis, and Quartz. Priya makes a case for Praxis, saying it sounds punchy and modern. And maybe it does. But would she feel the exact same way if her name started with L? We can't know for sure, but that P at the start certainly didn't hurt its chances. Here's where it gets really fascinating. The name-letter effect isn't just a mechanical quirk. It's tied to our emotions. For most of us, our name is a source of positive, or at least neutral, feelings. But if someone is going through a period of low self-worth, their own name can feel like a reminder of that pain. In that case, seeing their initial doesn't trigger a warm glow. It can trigger a little flinch of discomfort. The brain isn't saying, "That's me, and me is good." It might be saying, "That's me, and right now I'd rather not be reminded." The magnet flips from pull to push. So if you know this tiny bias exists, how can you make sure it doesn't get in the way of a big decision? It's simple. Blind yourself. If you're comparing two very similar products or services, cover up the brand names first. Make your decision based only on the criteria that actually matter to you: the price, the features, the reviews. Once you've made your choice, then you can peel back the label. This way, you're making a clean choice, without your initials quietly dragging on the wheel. On the other hand, you can also lean into it and use it on purpose, just for fun. When you're stuck on a name for a new project, start with your own initial as a creative constraint. Pick a gift with a tiny, elegant monogram if you know it will make the other person smile. It's your own little cognitive nudge. Now that you know about it, you get to be the one to decide when and how to use it. So, the name-letter effect is like a tiny personal compass you carry around. It doesn't point north. It just points a few degrees toward things that are shaped like you. It's a real, measurable preference that shows up in ratings and near-tie choices. But it is not a puppet master pulling the strings of your life. It's just one more quiet, fascinating quirk of the human mind. And for one last nudge, take a look at the last 3 usernames you created. For your email, for a game, for a forum. See your letter hiding in there? Now you know why it just felt right. Thanks for getting curious with us. We'll see you next time.